Okay, ladies and gentlemen. So we are back with our last set review for Urza Saga inside 10 minutes. It's gonna be Artifact. So the kicker here is that many people think that Urza Saga was an artifact set, which is actually not true. Like it was actually an enchantment set. The number of enchantments are a lot higher than the number of artifacts. Now, why this perception is there is because the most broken things which coming out of the Earth's block is generally related to artifacts. So you will have less of these cards in, but your most broken experience will come from interacting with that. So without further ado, let's get into this. So Variance Codex, during your upkeep, you may put a page counter on it, and 4 mana sacrifice it, draw X cards equal to the number of page counters, which is a slow draw engine from 1996, but it does draw you a lot of cards if the game goes long. Cathodian, we know this one, gets reprint, 3 mana 3/3. When it dies, you get a 3 colorless mana. Chimeric Staff, it's a 4 mana artifact, and for X, it can become an XX creature until end of turn. So this is very, very good. Like, this is deceptive, but once you have 8 mana, you just start cracking in with the staff, and then they can't really take it, but they can't really block it either. Citanu Flute, so this is one of those, I think, limited broken cards. It's 5 mana artifact, and you spend X and tap it. You search for a creature with a casting cost no greater than X, and then put it to your hand. Demonic Tutor every single turn. Claws of Geeks, it's a 0 mana artifact, 1 mana sacrifice permanent, gain 1 life. Well, this one probably is not very good in limited, but I think it's actually very underrated in for example Commander, because you can avoid exile effects, and then you can just get back stuff from your graveyard and it costs nothing to really sacrifice things with this. Copper Gnomes, it's a 2 mana 1/1, and for 4 mana you can sacrifice it, and you can basically sneak attack an artifact card from your hand. It's not very good in limited. Obviously, in constructed, you can do broken things with it. Crystal Chimes, however, I think this set is very, very good. So it's a 3 mana artifact, and 3 and tap. You can sacrifice it to return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to your hand. So considering that there's a lot of these opal enchantment creatures and stuff like that, I think this has a lot of play to it, and then generate a substantial amount of card advantage in limited. Dragon Blood, so it's 3 mana artifact, 3 tap, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Yeah, this used to be awesome in limited back in the day, and this is back in the day because we are nostalgia drafting. So Endoskeleton, it's 2 mana. Basically, it's an equipment. So you can spend 2 to tap, and then the creature gets 0 +0/+3. But the design is that you can choose not to untap it. So not to reattach or something like that. So that's the old design of how equipments were working back in the day. Fluctuator, 2 mana cycling cost you up to 2 less to play. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's a cycling deck and you can churn through that. Yeah, maybe that's part of a combo that you can get like a lot of cyclers and then, like rituals and stuff like that. But the question is still, how do you win the game with these? Anyway, I don't think it's playable in limited. Grafted Skull Cap, however, it's very much playable. So during your draw phase, draw an additional card. At the end of each turn, you discard your hand. While you draw 2 cards, you play them, so you don't need to discard them. Hopping Automaton, so it's a 3 mana 2/2, so it's a Grey Ogre, but for 0, it can get -1/-5 and gains flying until end of turn, which is pretty good. So Karn, Silver Golem, this is an interesting design. It's a 5 mana 4/4, which is pretty good on rate. And whenever it blocks or becomes blocked, it gets -4/+4. So you need to remember this trick. Basically, what's happening is that attacking into Karn, blocking Karn, will not kill your creature either way, because Karn is very peaceful. And then for 1 mana, target non-creature artifact is an artifact creature with power and toughness each equal to the casting cost until end of turn. So it animates your artifacts. Lifeline, I think this is a card which is pretty unbeatable in limited. So whenever a creature is put into a graveyard and a creature is in play, return that creature from your graveyard to play at the end of turn. Yeah, it's like ridiculous. So you can just get back creatures basically till infinity until it's destroyed. Lotus Blossom, so in the upkeep, it gets a battle counter. It's 2 mana artifact, and then once you have like 5 battle counter, you need to sacrifice and get 5 mana. So that's what you combo with Yawgmoth's Will or Time Spiral. So you can draw fresh 7 and then play them out for like 11 or 12 mana. Metrognome, so this is a 4 mana artifact, and when a spell and ability on opponent control makes you discard this one, then you create 4 1/1 gnome tokens, and then for 4 mana and tap, you can put a 1/1 artifact gnome creature onto play. Mishra's Helix, it's a 5 mana with the ability to spend X mana and you can tap X land. So basically, you can lock your opponent out of the game if you get ahead on board, and this is never going to be able to cast spells anymore. Mobile Fort, it's Formula 06 wall, but for 3 mana it gets +3/-1 until end of turn and it can attack. And you can do that twice, so you can become for 6 mana it becomes a 6/4 on attack. So that's pretty good card. Noetic Scales, yeah, so this one is also an interesting one. So during each player's upkeep, return to owner's hand each creature that player controls with power greater than the number of cards in his or her hand. So basically, it slows down the game. If people empty their hand, they start getting back creatures, and then they just can't maintain a massive board presence. So it kind of balances everything out, really. Phyrexian Colossus. So this is the Emrakul of the Ages from 1996. So this is an 8/8 for 7 mana Phyrexian Colossus, and then it does not untap during your untap phase, so pretty hefty drawback. And you can pay 8 life and untap it, and this has basically for its triple mana, so it's like Troll of Khazad-dûm. It can be blocked unless they block with their entire board, and it's probably gonna kill it. Very good with Voltaic though. Phyrexian Processor, speaking of another thing which is very good in Voltaic, and they just generate a very good card. It's a 4 mana artifact. When it comes to play, you pay any amount of life for 4 mana and tap, you can put a minion token into play, which is XX, and X is equal to the life sacrifice this way. So this is lately being reprinted as a mythic, so that's how powerful the card is. Pit Trap, so it's a 2 mana artifact, and for 2 you can tap it and sacrifice it and destroy target attacking creature without flying. Really good. Colorless removal, cannot ask for more. Purging Sky, during your upkeep, it deals 2 damage to a creature with the lowest toughness. If 2 or more creatures are tied, you can choose which one you deal damage. Yeah, I mean, this is just bringing that board down. Smokestack, 4 mana. So this is actually a Magic the Gathering skill set to play with Smokestack. So what's happening here is it's a 4 mana artifact. During your upkeep, you will put a suit counter on Smokestack. During each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices a permanent for each suit counter on Smokestack. And then you can basically like stack the triggers that way that you sacrifice first and then increase so your opponent needs to sacrifice more cards than you are. And it eats away the board. So yeah, so like knowing how to actually navigate smokestack is a real skill. So yeah, very curious if someone opens it and how they're gonna play with it. Temporal Aperture, so this is a 2 mana artifact. For 5 and tap, you can shuffle your library, reveal the top card until the end of turn. As long as that remains the top card, you may play it without without paying its mana cost. Sorry about that. So yeah, it's extra card draw. Also good at Voltaic Key and 11 mana. Trend Turbine, it's 1 mana, and during your upkeep, you may add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. This mana cannot be spent to play spells, but it can be used to cycling and activated abilities. So that's not nothing. And paying Echo cost is also something which comes to mind here. So don't necessarily sleep on this one. This has applications. Umbiliquous, so it's 4 mana artifact. During each player's upkeep, the player pays 2 life or returns a permanent he or she controls to owner's hand. So yeah, this is good in aggressive decks because you can put the pressure on them and they're not gonna be able to take the damage or reduce the board presence either. Urza's Armor, so it's 6 mana artifact. Whenever source deal damage to you, that damage is reduced by 1. So we had the statue of Bolas, which was similar, and this is a good card too because there's a lot of like chip damage going in the air for 1 and 2, and then this can basically eliminate those. Voltaiki, yeah, we know this from Vintage, Commander, Legacy, you name it, 8 key decks. So it's a 1 mana artifact. You can tap it for 1 mana and untap target artifacts. And Wall of Junk, it's a 0/7 defender for 2 mana, ladies and gentlemen. But the drawback is that whenever it blocks, return to the owner's hand at the end of combat. Late game, this is not going to be a big drawback, and it always blocks their best creature. So Whetstone, it's 3 mana artifact, and then for 3 mana, each player puts the top 2 cards, his or her library, into his or her graveyard. Yeah, I mean, if you can make it somehow asymmetric, then this is a mere win con. And then the last one here is Wirecat. So Wirecat cannot attack or block if an enchantment is in play, and it's a formula 4-3, which would be a good stat line, but unfortunately it's unplayable. So thanks for watching, and see you in the last video about the land.